In the wake of World War II, Professor Trevor Broom, occult investigator and guardian of the young Hellboy, and a group of war-weary veterans investigate Hitler's top-secret Project Vampire Sturm, exposing one of the greatest villains of the Third Reich, uncovering the secret history of vampires, and leading one Bureau agent to risk his soul and his mind. Welcome everybody to another exciting episode, another edition of A Week in Geekdom. I am so happy to be here with you guys talking about one of my favorite reads in quite some time, and of course I am talking BPRD, because you've already read the title of this video, but yeah, BPRD 1946 to 1948. I had not read this. I love the Mike Mignola verse, if you will, as the kids like to call it. I love Hellboy, one of my favorite comic book characters ever, and for some reason I had not read this. I have read Plague of Frogs and all the other BPRD stuff, but I skipped on this until now, and wow, this is an experience. I love this book so much. It is really fun, fantastic. If you like the occult, if you like Nazi science weird stories, and you're gonna love this book. Basically, we're getting an origin story for the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, and this is Trevor Broom's earliest adventures with dealing with the occult and establishing the Bureau. The story is presented in 3 books, basically, well, 1946, 47, and 48, and every single one deals with a special assignment that he's tasked to do. And it's really interesting. If you know your Hellboy stories, if you know your Hellboy lore, then you know that this is basically the prequel to everything related to the series, to the universe, if you will. Yes, technically the first story should be Hellboy's first book and his first appearance, but it's right after that where this book takes place, a year or 2 later, where the Bureau is in its infancy, and it's up to a young Trevor to establish the organization as a major playing force in the grand scheme of things. And you see that in the first story with the Russians and the vampire story, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, with the vampire Sturm. Post-World War II Germany is in shambles, and you get the Russian secret society of dudes and dudettes trying to get to this secret project that the Third Reich was working on, and it ties into stories you read about in the Hellboy library editions, and that's one of the greatest strong points of this book. If you're coming in cold and you've never read any BPRD, any Hellboy stuff, you're gonna have a fun time regardless. It's very accessible, it's very reader friendly, and that's one of the major props to this universe. No matter which book you pick up, whether it be Frankenstein, Witchfinder, Lobster Johnson, BPRD, whatever you pick up, you're gonna have a fun time, and you don't necessarily need to read the other books. However, the experience is so much better if you've read all the previous installments, or you have some general knowledge of the history in this universe. And that's the same with this book, especially this book, because if you've read BPRD stories, if you've read Hellboy, you are going to enjoy reading the origin story, basically, one of the biggest organizations in the world in this comic book universe, and how they got started. Now, the art in this book is done by several amazing artists, from Joshua Desart, Paul Azaceta, Gabriel Ba, Fabio Moon, and so on and so forth, and everything just looks phenomenal. Once you think you're accustomed to one particular art, then it switches and it gets better and better and better, and every single story, the art fits perfectly for what the story is trying to tell you about this young organization in its infancy, basically, and how Trevor has to weave through the political jargon and establish the BPRD as a major force, like I mentioned earlier. The writing is top-notch, as always. Mike Mignola with Dave Stewart, Really cool stuff, really fantastic. I guess what I like most about this book is a young Trevor Broom. You're so accustomed to knowing about this guy from his many backstories from the main Hellboy series as being sort of this legendary figure, and here you get to see that in an experienced form, and him reaching to new levels and discovering new things. And it's actually pretty cool not seeing Hellboy. He's in the book, of course. He's a little brat, as you can see right there, but not seeing him and having Trevor in the forefront, especially after what happened in the very first Hellboy book, it's actually a breath of fresh air, and I really enjoyed it. You know, this book functions like a trilogy, and it's so great to have them in this mini hardcover form right there. And here we have a character in Trevor Broom that is still figuring things out. When you first see him at the start of the book, he is a novice with such excitement to get out and see what the world has to offer in terms of the paranormal and the secret societies and all that stuff that would later become staples of the BPRD and all that. I think at the end of the day, that's what's most intriguing about this book, the Bureau books, because you see this organization from the beginning. You get a really cool shot at seeing how this evolved into the multi-layered machine that it is when you start reading stuff like Plague of Frogs and Hell on Earth, and etc., etc. And if you do want to continue reading it, if you do want to continue the experience, you're going to have to pick up, I believe it is BPRD Vampire, although the book is out of print. Right? It is out of print. It is out of print. So maybe you're gonna have a tough time finding it, whether it be singles or the single trade paperback. It's not like, don't worry about it if you can't find it. But I'm just saying, if you really want to continue this particular story where you see right here, then you might want to go ahead and check that out, because it relates to this story. But the book finishes off in a satisfying way, and because of course, you know, there's many more adventures. There's the 50s and 60s and so on and so forth. Here's a look at some of the artwork. Really awesome stuff, really creepy. Great usage of paneling and coloring to give this a very claustrophobic, almost hectic and hellish feel, in my opinion. I know I'm probably spoiling a few things with these images, but if you've never read it, then you've got nothing to worry about. You're going to enjoy it. Here's some of the artwork from the Moon Brothers. Looking fantastic. And my favorite art in this book, my favorite story in this book. The book has wonderful extras from sketches, sketchbook from all the different artists, to character studies and all that stuff that I really, really enjoy the heck out of, especially with the Plague of Frogs stuff. I haven't read, or I should say I haven't reviewed any of those books simply because they're too long. There's too many of them, but I will get down to it. I eventually want to do like a comprehensive video, I guess, on the Hellboy universe and go over Plague of Frogs, Hell on Earth, the Hellboy stuff. But for now, 1946 to 1948, a fantastic read. If you love Hellboy, if you love the BPRD universe and all that stuff, then this is a must-own, this is a must-read, in my opinion. Tell me what you thought of this. Tell me what was your favorite year out of these three. And as always, like, comment, subscribe, and do all that wonderful stuff that you guys do. You can follow me on your favorite social media platform, and I'm there for you guys. Alright, I gotta go. I will catch you on our next episode. Nope. Whoopsie.